तो रिकॉर्डिंग शुरू हो चुकी है. बिल्कुल, हाँ बिल्कुल, यही गोल है इस कॉन्वर्सेशन का. वैसे चिंता की बात नहीं है, मुझे लगता है 8-10 लोग से ज़्यादा सुनेंगे, इसलिए इट्स ऑल कूल, राइट? So what are we doing here?
So I think these are kind of our, we're going to call them Corona Diaries.
कोरोना डायरीज में कोरोना उतना खराब चीज़ नहीं लग रहा है. इट शुड बी समथिंग बैड, बट एनीवेज आई गेट इट. इट्स अ क्वारंटीन डायरी, राइट? क्वारंटीन्ड इन
COVID
न्यूयॉर्क.
Diaries. COVID Diaries.
COVID diaries, right? And we are quarantined in where? Let's just record it. हालांकि anyone listening knows where we are and all that stuff, but still, just for the sake of future when we listen, हम भूल जाएं पता नहीं कहाँ, right? So we are in New York. We are in the suburbs of New York, actually, right? We were in New York City. We moved out to Westchester, and to point out that Westchester was where, in New Rochelle, which is very close to us, they found the first case of corona around a month and a half back.
So patient 0 was in not too far away from us.
Not too far away from us. So another thing to note is that was the person. He's a lawyer who worked in Manhattan, so he went to New York hospital. He drove. He was driven by, I think, his neighbor, his family, and they tested. Every one of them was infected. He also visited a church, and he infected around.
He also owns a lawyer. He's a lawyer, so he owns
a
a practice in Manhattan. All his employees got it.
All his employees? I did not know that.
Yeah, I mean, all his employees were quarantined. A bunch of them got it. We don't know.
Yeah.
And then another thing to notice, he didn't get it from China. He got it from Iran.
Oh.
He had recently visited Iran.
Okay, good. And he infected 50 odd people in all, that I remembered initially. But the good news is, let's end with the good news about this guy, is that this guy just returned home after however long he was there in the hospital, cured and happy.
I mean, he returned home yesterday, and that has to be over a month. And we're talking about, that was surprising. Not only surprising, a little bit shocking that somebody infected. He wasn't even in that critical situation. He was just in the hospital, but he had to spend a month in hospital before coming home. That speaks to the extent of this thing.
Okay, so let's get to us. Or I want to first ask you, when do you remember you got really serious about this? I remember this is about your colleague returning from Japan. Why did you get serious then?
So I don't think we have mentioned yet. I'm pregnant.
Oh, congratulations! I don't know. Did I congratulate you? Or
So
I'm not supposed to.
I was at the time I was, I'm gonna say, between 15 and 16 weeks pregnant, and most of my colleagues are from Japan. One of the colleague had visited Japan. He was in Japan at the time, and he was coming back, and no one was taking it seriously, so there was no plan to quarantine him. He was in fact landing in JFK at 10 a.m. and coming to work the same day at 3 p.m. And there was just no plan in place.
Yeah, so one of the things, the way all these companies are working is that if there is a CDC guideline about something,
yes,
they try to follow that, right?
Yeah, so basically it has even now it's working like that. It's become an out for most of the companies. They can give you less mask. They can just get away with not quarantining. Whatever CDC says is sort of like the guideline, and it changes. It changed.
Yeah.
So Yoshi was at work for 1 week, and then by that weekend, after 7 days of being at work, the guideline changed, and then he was quarantined the next week.
So let's make it clear. So were you and Yoshi at work at the same point of time? Did you have an intersection? Now, you were concerned, but did you have...
I mean, I think the closest I got to him was maybe 10 feet away. I had locked myself in my room. I usually treat my patients in my room anyways. I was wearing mask 100% of time. He was also wearing mask sometimes, but some other times he wasn't. I don't know what the deal was there.
It's important to note that this person did not get sick, so he was not a carrier, for all we know.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
There's no evidence. It's just that you really got concerned at that time, and I got concerned when I heard about him coming back, and you obviously were on top of things much more than me. And then when we together decided, abhi se lagbhag 3 weeks before, that we are not going to go to work, right? Before all our friends in the city, Brooklyn, Manhattan, we decided that we're not going to go to work. Starting Monday, I wrote an email to my boss, and you did whatever you had to do, and we decided not to go to work.
Yes.
Okay.
That was the week. That was the week everyone was going to work.
Okay.
Nothing had changed. One of the reasons, apart from pregnancy, that drove our decision, I think, was that the patient 0 was on our train line. So a lot of infections from that time probably happened on our train line, and we didn't want to take that train.
So patient 0, and everyone affected, they're practically 1 mile away from us, because on this side, if you go this side, it's less than a mile away. So it's like we have some sort of border very close to. So
and everyone takes that train.
So this appeared to be the epicenter back then, but within days and weeks, very quickly, New York City took over. So as of now, from what I remember, we have around 35,000 cases, positive cases in New York City, and around
10,000.
8,000 here at Westchester, around the number I saw last check.
But that's also because you have to remember, 2 weeks into that patient 0, they called National Guard and they set up a 1 mile radius around that guy. One of my patients actually lives in New Rochelle. If you remember, I told you he was quarantined just because he was a neighbor of the...
Yeah, so they started taking measures. So maybe the early detection of a guy here was a positive thing, because then they got really, the National Guard, surrounding the area, and they are helping people so that they don't have to get out for groceries and stuff. I think that's the kind of thing that happened back then. And also they had one of the first drive-through testing center here in New Rochelle, from what I remember. Right? Como is one of the first. So drive-through is important because if you're not going to a hospital, first of all, you have less chance of spreading and getting. Just because you went for a test, you shouldn't get the virus, right? So drive-through, you drive through it, you just, crack open your glass and you get the swab, and you just wait for whatever time it takes to get the results. So that was a good thing. It started here.
Yeah. And one of my co-workers actually also lives in New Rochelle. Emmy lives in New Rochelle. And that was also one of the concerns that I didn't want to go, because, again, there was a lot of infections in New Rochelle, people who quarantined in New Rochelle, and she lives in New Rochelle and takes that train. And I share workspace with her.
So yes, so this is our 4th week of being in this state. I went for groceries last week. People were maintaining distance. They were allowing very few people inside at a time. They were keeping a count of things. They also provided gloves right outside the gate so that you could wear, and they were taking all the precautions. I saw that the cashier was behind a glass. They had put up something there, so you were not even in interaction. There was a small hole for credit card and everything. So they took all the precautions. I felt pretty safe there, and there were very few people. Just making a note of the point. What else? So let's talk about right now what our daily life is, right? And just stop at that, and we'll
Yeah, I mean, my daily life has been very upside down. There's not much of a routine right now because, like most of you, I cannot work from home.
Exactly, which means you have to, I think we never mentioned, so you are
I'm a physical therapist, so of course my work is mostly in person. And from the day one that I took off, I had been using my time off.
So you had to use your time off, and I think now it's what is called furloughed, or it's not actually laid off, but it's like
it's unpaid basically.
It's unpaid, and so it's very different for you versus what it is for me, because I'm still working from home. So for me, the whole work has shifted. For the entire team, we are all working from home, so we are doing the amount of work that we did actually. And sometimes I feel I'm working more because I start early and until late I'm sitting, and there's no commute and all those time which I used, in my podcast, and my book is now going to the work that I do, and I'm not very happy about it, and I don't know how to manage it. But so that's my state, that I am working. But for you, it's a different kind of challenge. So the things we do today, I just want to keep a record of it for eternity, for future when we come back and we listen to this. One of the things we started doing every day was listening to Cuomo, right, the governor of New York. We started making the records every time he said these many patients, and I have a list of which whenever I reported it to people, and it dramatically grew. And of course, a lot has to do with testing, because I think as of last, what I remember, they are doing more than 16, somewhere between 15 to 20,000 tests every day in New York itself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's one thing we did, right? We shared with a friend. Another thing which we do a lot now was one of our WhatsApp group where everyone who is in New York, Brooklyn, and we are in a constant conversation with them.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of keeps it lively, right? And we talk about what we are cooking, and we share pictures and those kinds of conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like some sort of bonding happening there.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. What else?
Well, my schedule, like I used to have a very good schedule going to work, because I work from 7 to 3 or 8 to 4. I was an early riser, getting up at 5, and now I sometimes don't even get up at 8 or 9. So I have like a very loose to no schedule, and then I wake up and then I spend maybe an hour just looking at news. Like every morning you wake up and you think about...
You're doing too much of news, man.
Wake up and you wake up in sort of an anxiety. It's like, what's the number today? What's happening? Like, so yeah, I mean, it has decreased nowadays, but it's still consistently like every morning there is like a news cycle of at least half an hour, 45 minutes. You catch up with friends. What's everyone doing? Now I'm getting into a better state. I think in the beginning I was very stressed. We did some meditation and breathing together to manage that stress. Now I'm calming down a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm stressed at all. I mean, it's like I'm very confident that if you take all the precautions, you'll be fine. And that is exactly what we're doing. So the only thing we have to do outside is grocery, and sometimes in the evening I go out for a walk when it's nice, but the park is very, it's not very crowded. The people are at a lot of distance, and there's instructions everywhere for people to maintain 6 to 10 feet distance, and I see that people are trying to follow that, and there's a lot of space to walk. So that's something which I do, the walk. But other than that, I don't feel, I mean, we are very careful with our groceries, right? We sanitize everything we get from outside. Or what else? Another thing is that the building, in our building, I think the one of the very first things they did that pretty initially. They put up notices, put up sanitizers. I don't know how they acquired it, because nobody was getting it. But these guys somehow managed to get a lot of sanitizers and put it on every floor. And they gave us instructions to take care, because they also noted the point that our building happens to have many elderly people. So that was one of the things. What else? What else are we missing? Are we missing anything? We used to go out and eat, right? That is not happening. In fact, we ate outside our lunch every day.
Yeah.
So that a lot of cooking is happening.
A lot of cooking is happening.
Yeah, that is
groceries are going
times,
away a lot quicker than we thought.
A lot of cooking means a lot of cleaning, and a lot of cooking and bartan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since this happened, since we've been in quarantine, right before we got into quarantine, I don't know if you remember, like a day before that, we had gone to the doctor for my last ultrasound.
Yes.
And I haven't gone to her since.
Yeah.
So it'll be 4 weeks. And day after tomorrow is my midterm. It's like a major ultrasound scan.
Yeah. So that is on our minds. And
my doctor called me this morning and told me that no one can accompany me. So no one can accompany me even at the premises, inside in the waiting room, nowhere. They said your husband is not allowed to come in, because they're really trying to limit the visitors. And that is also happening in New York City as general. Earlier they restricted partners from being in the delivery room altogether. Now they're coming up with they'll let you go, but you cannot go with
Thankfully,
me.
Yeah, we are far away from that situation as of now, right? So I think we should stop here, and we should maybe next week we will see how first of all your appointment went, and we'll take it from there.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I don't like the way I said bye-bye.
And I just copied you.
Maybe I'll cut that.